Hey, Walter Sorrells back with another Knife Makers Friday 5. Today, being an efficient knife maker. Does it even matter? So I was probably born to be an efficiency engineer. I'm that guy who stands in the grocery line, like tapping his foot when the clerk starts talking to the person in front of me and forgets about ringing up the groceries. I'm just built that way. It's how I was wired. And, I don't make it a moral point. It's probably a moral failing, but it's just how I am. Anyway, so today I was working in my shop and I managed to arrange things so that I was more or less doing the work of 3 people at once. Kind of patting myself on the back for it, honestly, but it got me thinking about knife making and efficiency. So first, let's get the money thing out of the way right off the bat. It goes without saying that if you can work more efficiently in any trade, you can make more money. Time is money. That's always been true. If you ever want to put food in your children's mouths, by making knives, efficiency of effort has to be in the front of your mind. But even if you never in a million years have any interest in making $1 as a knife maker, it's kind of worth giving some thought to the subject. Okay, so first, the bad news. Strategy 1, better gear makes you more efficient. So let me describe what I was doing today to make that point. I have a run of knives going on my CNC machine over there. The way this particular job's set up, I can basically kind of fire up the mill and it'll profile the knives while I walk away for like 20 minutes at a time. Now I could sit there flipping through my phone looking at cat videos while the machine runs, but instead I started working on rough grinding a Tonto that I'd forged yesterday. So that gave me 2 products, totally different types of knives. One's kind of a production type thing, and the other is forged, real handmade type thing. But they're both moving forward at once. Now, on top of that, I was cutting tube pins on my bandsaw. So basically, every time I walked past the bandsaw, basically I'd push this little piece of tube stock down to the stop. Actually, I had 3 pieces of tubes sitting on top of each other so that I could cut 3 at a time. And I'd turn on the saw, which has an auto feed mechanism, and then I'd walk away. So CNC machine's working, the saw's working, and then I'm over there working at the grinder. To me, that's a huge win, but you can overdo that. The old expression, too many irons in the fire, actually comes out of our trade. If you've ever worked with coal fires, they run extremely hot, so you stick a bunch of iron in there, a bunch of knives into the fire. Eventually, you'll end up burning the tips off of a bunch of them, and you'll have to start over. So there's a cost to doing a whole bunch of things at once. And that cost is basically, it's hard work. It takes a ton of concentration and energy. So, hey, it is what it is. But that leads me to strategy number 2. Everybody can't throw money at a whole bunch of fancy tools. That's just real life. But you can organize yourself efficiently. So let's say you volunteer to make, 3 knives to raise money for your kid's baseball team or your daughter's soccer team or something. You could make knife 1, then make knife 2, then make knife 3. It seemed like it was going to be fun, but by the time you get around to making the 3rd version of the same knife, you're just kicking yourself. Each time you're getting out the same set of tools and then stowing them, setting up the equipment, then taking it down, so on, so on, so on. It's always more efficient to set up the machine one time, repeat the same operation a bunch of times, then move on to the next operation. So overall point here, 5 minutes thinking through your projects at the beginning can sometimes save you hours of work later on. So strategy number 3, and this is actually a really cool one, something that maybe, you have to make a certain number of knives before you start to figure this out. Knife design itself is part of the equation. After you've made a few knives, you start to realize that certain features that may seem kind of cool, maybe a customer asked for them, maybe they didn't, but they're just ridiculously time consuming to make. I mean, one thing you might notice if you go to the Blade Show or something like that is that a lot of the newer generation of guys making forged knives don't make that many knives with cross guards. Why is that? traditional forged knives very frequently had cross guards, but making a properly fitted cross guard is really just one of the most time-consuming, finicky, sometimes infuriating jobs that you can do in knife making. So, there are a lot of cool knife types that don't require a cross guard. So, why create extra work for yourself, especially if you're trying to put food on the table with your work? Honestly, it's just hard to charge enough money to justify all that work. And that, whether you're making, stock removal knife or a forged knife or whatever, there are always some elements of design that may make no difference to the buyer or the user or whatever, but that will save you a ton of time and effort. So if you can find those efficiencies, it just really makes, making knives easier for you. Strategy number 4, do it right the first time. Now look, on the face of it, this may not really sound like it has anything to do with efficiency, but here's kind of how this works. So I was talking to Bert Foster the other day up at Billy Salyer's Hammer Inn in North Carolina. First time I'd ever met him. He's just a truly top tier knife maker, master smith, ABS master smith, all this stuff. Anyway, Billy had just passed his ABS journeyman smith test with Bert, running the test. Anyway, so Bert was kind of giving him some advice about going for his master smith stamp. And what Bert said was, this was like the most important thing he said in making yourself a better knife maker, was that when you run into problems with a knife, you just got to resist that temptation to skip over that last little bit of work, the thing that makes it perfect, and to move on to something else and say, oh yeah, I'm going to come back there and finish it later. Stay on task, get it done right, then move on. So the reason for this is that it's always going to take twice as long to sand out those last few file marks, the scratches in the plunge line, whatever it is, get that guard set evenly, whatever. And if you start committing yourself to other, subsequent parts of the build, you might never get it done. What I'm getting at is that good work often dovetails with efficient work. Not always, let's face it. Sometimes you just have to go the hard way if you want to get something really perfect. But often an efficient process is also a high quality process. So personally, I think efficiency is a habit of mind. It's not like you have to go through some boring exercise or checklist every single time you start work, trying to figure out, the absolute most efficient course of action ever. It's more just a matter of kind of weighing things a little when you start out, with a particular task or a particular knife. So here are some things to ask yourself as you get started on a project. Will I be repeating this operation on several knives? This is probably the single biggest thing that you can do to be more efficient. If you do have a whole bunch of, similar things that you're going to be doing on several knives, or even maybe on one knife, maybe do them in a batch by just lining things up and doing a whole bunch of drilling operations or whatever at one time. You save, putting tools away, putting new drill bits in, all that kind of stuff that in and out, all that kind of stuff can just waste an enormous amount of time. So next question, am I using the most efficient tool to accomplish this task? Counterintuitively, sometimes the best tool is actually handwork. I used to have all my woodworking gear stowed, kind of in inconvenient places in my shop, and it was actually more efficient to just grab a handsaw and cut a 2x4, with that handsaw than to get out my chop saw. Here's another example. I can actually get the spine of my Tontos adjusted more accurately, more quickly with a file than on a belt grinder. All right, so all of this kind of begs the question, what if I just want to go out to the shop on Saturday afternoon, putter around, come in when it's about time to crack open a Schlitz? Is there any reason in the world to be efficient if that's the way I'm looking at my knife making? It just doesn't seem fun. Well, you might be right. Look, efficiency can mean a lot of different things. If you're that guy who keeps thinking, boy, it'd be so cool to make some knives to sell, if for no other reason than, being able to buy a new belt grinder or something like that, and you're not getting there, you got, 80 half-made knives lying around. Hey, being a little more directed, a little more efficient, a little more organized might get you over the hump and get you that cool new grinder. But look, maybe that's not why you do this stuff. If that's the case, it's nice to know it and have that real clear in your mind. I'm a big believer that, the type of work that you do and the way that you approach your work has to fit with who you are as a person. And sometimes a little self-reflection about, do I like doing things in a really, fast, aggressive way? Or, am I that sort of OCD person who just, wants to be really meticulous and get everything dead perfect? Whatever way comes most naturally to you is probably going to be the way that's most efficient for you in the long run. Sometimes you can clear the minefield a little bit if you're a super disorganized person, but at the end of the day, organization might actually be more a function of just the fact that you're not after perfection here. You're not after a profession here. It's just supposed to be fun. And if that's the case for you, it's nice to know that and have it clear in your mind. A little reflection on the subject of, exactly why you're not interested in being one single bit more efficient than you are might make your trip to the shop all that more enjoyable. Satisfaction, that's what we're after eventually, and you can't put a price on that. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and keep making those knives. Or not, if that's your thing. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe and make sure that you click on that bell so you get notified of all the latest videos. Want to buy a knife from me? Check out my modern blades at tacticsarmory.com. Digging the channel? You can support our video making efforts on Patreon. I've been banging away on these videos for like 10 years, so I hope you'll show some love for all that hard work. Link in the cards and descriptions. Finally, if you're interested in making Japanese swords, check out my full line of Japanese sword videos where I show how to forge Japanese swords as well as how to polish them and how to make fittings, handles, and scabbards. WalterSorrellsBlades.com.